Megan 18 from Haslams. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. You are well, we're talking today because you've got a submission in for a key influencer piece. Now, I know you, and I know that your first reaction is, I'm not an influencer. Now we know in the obvious senses of the words that these days when you talk about influencers, people think about people on sort of social media. And I think we can all say that when it comes to social media and TikTok, you certainly are an influencer. In fact, you now get merch to sell, to sell on TikTok. It's amazing. People want you to endorse their products. And certainly in the property world, I'm sure that's also the case as well. But when it comes to being an industry influencer, the reason why you would first of all sort of try and push against that is because generally speaking, it's for more senior people, and you're quite young as far as it goes, but you've achieved an immense amount in quite a short time. Do you appreciate that, or is that something that still doesn't quite register with you?
I don't think it's quite registered with me, to be honest. I mean, I'm actually quite flattered by the fact that you said that I was still young. It's obviously the heavy investment in my skincare regime that's keeping me.
It's obviously relative to me. That's all.
Well, absolutely. Well, no comment. I think for me, it's when I think of an influencer, I think of all those people on Instagram, like on the beach, looking fabulous. So no, I love that we've got this platform now that we can share about all these different things that are important to us in our industry. So yeah, it's exciting to have that as an opportunity, but it's it does come with a little bit of like, really? Why?
What achievement are you most proud of in your professional life? And what achievement are you most proud of in your general life?
So my general life is really easy. It's definitely my son. Dexter is the best thing that ever happened to me. And as corny as it might sound, he's just awesome. So I can't argue with that, right? He's got a lovely smile and he makes me happy every day. So in my personal life, it would be definitely Dexter. In my professional life, I think that's quite a difficult one because I'm just really proud in general of my career and every little step of it. There's been a couple of moments, I think, probably where I thought, oh my God, like that was pretty cool. And definitely.
Can I have one of those, please? Just one.
You know what? Just you can have one. And I think it was probably when I became, it's a toss-up. I think probably the first time I became a manager. So when I became a lettings manager and I kind of broke out of that negotiator kind of cycle of, working through, that was the first time that I felt like somebody had faith in me beyond, being a neck.
Cool. When you look back as well at your career, if you could give one piece of advice to Megan, age 19, starting out again, or anybody really entering our industry for the first time, and this, I suppose, is advice that could also apply to just a young business or a young agent, what one piece of advice would you give them?
Well, I'm terrible at giving myself advice, so let's just forget my own advice. But I think if I was going to speak to a young neg at this point, or somebody breaking into the industry, I'd say learn all aspects of the job. So I think now that I'm at a more senior level, it's really benefited me to learn, I've done property management, I've done admin, I've done neg work, and I now when I look at it as a whole picture, as a sort of senior manager, I can actually go, do you know what? That doesn't work because you're not respecting that department, or we're not, working together as a team. And I think you understand all the different cogs if you have been a cog, because everyone's important. There is no person in that office that's more important than the other.
In many ways, then, what we're saying is it's probably quite important to have specific focuses, but also when you're running an office, have the flexibility, because sometimes life doesn't go the way that you want it to. And if somebody calls in sick, or for whatever reason, somebody from the lettings department needs to cover a sales valuation, I think you did 3 of them last week, if I'm not mistaken. you need that versatility, and we're in danger if we sort of teach people to be too siloed into just what they're focusing on. They're not going to get that kind of spread of skills, are they?
No, I agree. And I think that certainly in lettings, one of the big ones that people skip because they don't want the hassle is being a property manager. But I tell you, if you work in property management for a year, you will treat your property managers like they are the kings and queens of this world.
Without going all Watkins sofa on you, because Chris and I have slightly different styles when it comes to approaching this sort of subject. But clearly there's been a big push to talk about women's role in agency, and because we never saw people being vocal, being shouty, to quote Amy Shields, about their successes, but we knew there were plenty of women in agency. But what I'm about to say is that there's a tendency, particularly from males, when they're describing female characters within the industry, to use the words formidable or strong woman, because they're trying to sort of almost give them, I suppose, almost give them some sort of manly characteristics, if you like, in terms of being a little bit more aggressive, because they need to be formidable. They need to be somebody that you cannot cross and not mess with in order to get as far as their male counterparts. You, however, are very, very nice in terms of your attitude, the way that you deal with people. And so if I were to think of Megan 18, I think of somebody that has achieved an awful lot in their career and is going to go on to do wonderful things and people believe in and they look up to. But I'm not going to call you formidable because you've not got that kind of aura to you. Let me ask you then, can you be nice and still get places in the property industry? Or as a woman, do you need to be a little bit more horrible?
Well, I think no, I don't think you do. I think I've shown that actually the amount of people that sit there and say to me, just stop being so nice, you included, have told me stop being so nice. I think that one of the issues that we faced as women, and I remember when I became that lettings manager, that I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of, I just suddenly had to manage a team. And what I did is I went down masculine traits. I went into hard, I went into aggressive. And whilst that's not necessarily all traits of a man, obviously, for me, it didn't work. And it took me time. And for years, I thought I was a bad manager until I sat on a management course. And at the start, I said, I just want to learn how to be tougher with people because I struggle. And by the end of it, they said, oh, did you achieve that? I said, no. What I realized is actually I don't have to be, that I actually can work with people in a way where they respect me, but they also just don't want to let me down because they know, I said it to a member of the team just yesterday. I said, I'll always be on your good side, but just don't make me not have to be on your good side. And they were like, no, we wouldn't want to, because I bring the sweets to the office.
Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Yes. I think one of the quotes that I think probably is quite pertinent in that situation. You've given us another quote where we've asked what your favorite quote is, and you've said, do what you can where you are with what you have. And obviously that's a quote all about resourcefulness. What is it about that particular quote, whoever we attribute it to? We're currently at the moment between Tony Stark of Iron Man, possibly Teddy Roosevelt as well, and maybe another. But whoever it is, what is it about that quote that talks to you?
I think that what I actually said to you, David, was pick whichever one makes me look smarter. So if you could just do that, that'd be great. So I always think back to, in Iron Man, when he builds it, what did we check it was? It was the arc reactor, the little lighty thing in his chest. Yeah. And he built that when he was being held hostage, if I remember rightly. And he built that out of random pieces that he found. And that's how he essentially survived. So for me, it's a bit like if you look at that as our job, that as a CRM system, we've got data coming out of our ears, but yet we're always wanting just to spend money on buying more and more things. But actually, why don't we just look at what we've got already what can we do with that, and what can we build out of that? Because actually our CRM systems, for example, are an absolute gold mine. You just gotta work out how you're going to pick at it. So for me, it's just about saying, don't panic, don't spend loads of money, let's see what we've got and let's work with what we've got already.
If you could think of, I mean, there are loads of stuff affecting us as a nation, as a world at the moment, in terms of the news cycle's been a little bit heavy recently. I don't know if you've noticed.
No,
but,
not at all.
But given that we live in a very uncertain world, our industry it's a smaller industry, but in a microcosm of that little world, if you could pick one issue that is currently affecting our industry that you think we all need to put our heads together to try and solve, what would it be? And you can only pick one, please.
I'm going to have to give this to the letting side. And I think that we have a continuous legislative push constantly placed on our side of the business, which is pushing landlords out the market. I think the stats that we put out at Property Mark were 39% across the country we've lost of landlords since COVID. Now, alongside that, we've got a 52% locally, more people looking. So it's no secret of the fact that we're in like this perfect storm where we've got no properties. But the reality is the issue that we solve is that the government constantly keep throwing around, all different parties, I might add, their golden solution for housing. But the reality is that we should probably just depoliticize housing and actually try and figure out how we not only support people in buying their first homes, but we actually support those that actually don't want to buy their first homes, or don't want to, or can't afford to buy, or whatever it might be, but they still need to rent. You can't favour home buying and then expect there still to be rental properties left at the end of it. And at the moment, we're not incentivizing landlords to buy back into the market. We're not incentivizing the current landlords to stay in the market, but we're also expecting them to take on more and more legislation and more costs as we go. So
it's a very English thing, isn't it, really, to sort of, we encourage our youth, our young, to sort of buy houses as soon as they can. That whole sort of thing of an Englishman's home is his castle is kind of what we were brought up on. And we all, I don't know if you've ever rented a property, but when you do, if you've got sensible parents, they may say something like, what are you renting for? Why are you making your landlord richer instead of getting on the ladder? And we've created this kind of stigma in our markets that really home buying is the preference, and that renting is the much poorer relative for people who just will never be able to make it. And I feel that puts an unnatural pressure on young people these days, especially at the prices that we're talking about.
I totally agree. And actually, it was interesting because when I was looking at buying a house, I refused to rent. So, I basically stayed at home until the point I could buy. Now, the reality is that the reason why I could buy is, I did save up a chunk of deposit, but my mum helped me out. And then the reason why I'm in the house I'm at is because she passed away. I wouldn't have any of the houses that I would have purchased if I hadn't had a little bit of support from a parent. But then as parents now, I'm sat here going, I ain't earning like money to put in savings to be giving Dexter a house deposit. So what's the solution here? Because I'm going to have to remortgage my house to buy him one.
And we need some creative thinking around that. And some people are quite happy to rent properties, and you're doing some fantastic work there in Reading with your kind of sister brand, I think you're called Mosaic, aren't you? Mosaic Living.
Yeah, Mosaic Living.
In the build to rent sector, which I have jokingly referred to as the let them eat cake solution to the crisis in the private rented sector. But effectively, let's just summarize that for people. It is offering properties which you would call, in your Megan 18 speak, bougie. You would call it bougie. Whereas I would call them they are upmarket properties. They are usually furnished as quite a decent standard, and they have ancillary services. So they may have a gym, they might have a concierge service, they might have a swimming pool, all the things that you might find in a really nice boutique hotel. And in fact, it's like living in a boutique hotel. But that's a generation of people renting there that want lifestyle. and they don't mind renting lifestyle if they have to. That's a different way of looking at it, isn't it?
It is. So when we decided to set up Mosaic, so we pulled in loads of different companies that had their skills to try and sort of, we're almost like the Avengers, I'm going to call it, of the build to rent world. So we've got some amazing businesses all wrapped in there. But the way we trained it out to the staff in a very Megan way, you know me, always very blunt. I was like, if a rental property had a love child with a hotel, this is what we're going to make. It's built to rent. So the reality is that the main lifestyle that we've had in the first build to rent that we've worked in is overseas people. Now you get people that come over to the UK for 2 years on a contract. They don't want to buy furniture. They don't want to buy into the community. They just want the community given to them. And as a sort of Gen Z millennial kind of era that we're kind of in now, we all rent things. We don't buy them. You know, if I can pay over 3 months, hell yeah, I'm going to pay over 3 months. So it's a bit like, you know, you rent your deposit, you rent your car, you know, you rent your property. And actually it's just buying into that new kind of way of thinking.
Interesting. Your mum famously has been your inspiration, probably the reason why you're in the industry at the moment. She was a very well-known and well-loved estate agent there in Reading as well. So your mum sadly not with us anymore, but somebody that you always quote as being a massive inspiration in your life. If your mum were to pop back today and she were to walk back into our industry today, do you think she'd find a very different industry to the one that she left? Do you think she'd think we made some progress?
No, absolutely not. I don't think she would have at all. When I'm trying to think. So she passed away, 7 years ago. So yeah. Have we got a solution to buying homes and it not being an absolute nightmare? No. Have we got solutions to bringing back people into the market? No. Are deposit sizes still massively high? Yeah. We haven't really, you know, done anything.
So those are the issues affecting, say, the consumer angle of our industry. If you were to look at how it is to actually be somebody working in our industry, is it better to be an estate agent? I guess what I'm getting to is, I feel like we're making some progress with our reputation and who we are and our kind of sense of our own sense of who we are within the industry. Has that not improved a bit?
Yeah, I think it has, but I think that you also have to look at the people that are doing that, and it is a generation of sort of younger people. And actually, David, I am including you in that. You know, people that are passionate about it, that have got their faces on a video. Would my mum have sat and spoken to you on a video call right now? Absolutely not. She would have been like, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. I've got things to do." You know, she wouldn't have looked at it as a wider thing. From her point of view, she worked with honesty and integrity, and her clients knew that. So she didn't really care that everybody else didn't like them. And actually, there's an element of that I think we have lost as an industry, that we spend so much time moaning about the fact that people have poor associations that we then forget to actually make sure that we are changing those perceptions, as in our work, how we deal with customers, how we speak to tenants, how we speak to buyers. You know, everybody that comes in your office should be treated in the same way, and you should be looking at them in a whole life cycle of their whole lives rather than in a transactional place. So yeah, I think that we as an industry still have quite a way to go, but we also shouldn't forget the roots that we came from.
Thank you for